folks, we're making a tropical countertop using a few metallic powders and a couple epoxy dyes with Stone Coat Countertop epoxy. We're gonna mix them all up in a bucket, pour it out, countertop complete. Stay tuned, enjoy the video. Because we're going with the exotic pour technique, it's gonna require a little bit more epoxy. We're only gonna do one coat, and then I'm gonna come back with the ultimate top coat to finish this project out. We're pouring over a sheet of wood today. I've rounded the corners. I've applied 2 coats of our epoxy undercoat in white. Let that completely dry. We're ready for epoxy. You can do this same recipe over your existing surfaces. All you need is a few prep steps to prep that existing surface properly to accept a coating of epoxy. Folks, if you learned something helpful in today's video, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel. We notice most of our viewers aren't subscribed. We want to help you make your kitchen look fantastic. Subscribe, ring that bell so you get notified every time we drop a new video. All right, step 1, when going with an exotic pour, I'm going to create a tape dam with masking tape. I'm going to do a few layers around the perimeter of my project. That's going to hold my color technique right in place till we let the epoxy thicken up for about 3 hours. Then we're going to peel that tape, let the epoxy flow nice and even, leaving behind high definition, vivid epoxy edges. That's a pro tip. Whenever you're using an exotic pour, make a tape dam. Tape dam is complete. It's a quick step, just taping off those edges. We're ready to mix some epoxy. When doing the exotic pour technique, you're gonna mix up some additional epoxy per square foot. For a normal clear coat, you're mixing up 3 ounces per square foot. For exotic pours, we're mixing up 5 to 6 ounces per square foot. We're starting with part B. Stone Coat is a 1-to-1 ratio epoxy by volume, not weight. We mix for 2 minutes with a paddle mixer on a drill. We're gonna get the epoxy nice and mixed, and then we're gonna divide our mixed epoxy up into separate mixing cups, and then we're gonna tint that epoxy our tropical colors. We'll pour that epoxy back into this mixing bucket, and then we're pouring a completed countertop right out of this bucket. All right, we're gonna mix this epoxy for 2 minutes with a drill and a paddle mixer. Midway through, we're gonna slow this down and rub the sides and bottom of this bucket. That's gonna scrape off any undermix epoxy and make sure we start out with a really good mixture. Get the bottom, and then grab that bucket, pick it back up, and mix for another minute. All right, that's mixed. I'm gonna use some of Stone Coat's Epoxy Dispersion Fluid to incorporate and add some selling effects to my metallic powders in the exotic pour. A little bit of this is all that's needed, and I just pour in a little bit into the bottom of my metallic cups. I wanna keep this tropical countertop on the more mild side. I'm gonna tint a large amount white and then use that as my base as I add in my accent colors. Pour that out, countertop complete. Get my white. Okay, that's gonna be my white dye. A little bit of this white goes a long way. The liquid epoxy dyes are insanely concentrated. I'm scraping the sides, just incorporating that white. Okay. Let's grab our powders. And again, these are also very concentrated. Our metallic powders were designed and formulated for use in resin. They're made of natural metals and minerals. Many uses for our metallic powders as well. They can go on slime, cosmetics, all sorts of stuff. That's some blue earth. One we don't use much, I'm gonna see how this looks in this tropical color, blue pearl. It catches the light just right and adds a shimmering blue to the project. I'm kind of excited to see how this looks. A little bit of this teal blue green. This is what's gonna take us to the tropics. Oop, a little bit too much, but that's okay. You get 15 grams of powder per metallic powder colorant, and that's enough to fully tint 2 gallons of epoxy. All right, let's mix these up before we add them to the epoxy. You can see how easily they're already incorporated. That's done. Instantly makes our powders wet and adds some really cool selling to the project. That's that blue pearl. See that? Ooh, doesn't look like much till it catches the light. I think it's gonna go well with this color scheme. Okay, and don't need to add any to the gold dust. So now we're gonna take the rest of our mixed epoxy and put it into our accent colors here. Remembering I kinda wanna keep this on the less wild side. So I'm gonna make these accent colors less. I just use a popsicle stick. This stuff is a hybrid powder glitter gold dust. Woo-wee. Hello. I love gold. Blue green. Ooh, blue pearl. Look at that stuff. That's what I'm talking about. That's gonna be sweet. We will see. I have not used blue pearl in an exotic pour yet. I've had my epoxy mixed up here for a good 10 minutes and we're still good to go. You don't want to let that epoxy sit for a really, really long time in the buckets. That's going to speed up the curing process. So you have plenty of time to tint your epoxy, get it back in our bigger bucket, but then we're going to get that out on our surface and let it start self-leveling. Then we have hours of this product to self-level, meld, mix, all that good stuff. All right, to build your exotic pour bucket, we're going back to our larger mixing bucket and we're gonna randomly apply these colors back into the bucket. We're not gonna mix it. We're just gonna pour that back out on this project and watch it come to life. I love this technique. It's very simple, perfect for first-time epoxy users. Just get your colors picked out, get them mixed. We're off to the races. Let's do this. Here we go. Starting with some white. Layer in a little, so I'm gonna do little bits of these colors. I'm really gonna do mostly white. See what this does for me. Okay, that I think is gonna be sweet. You can see how when I pour real little, it floats. And when I pour it heavier, it dives all that material and incorporates it. Ooh, hi. Yes. I have not made an exotic pour like this before yet. We do the testing and experimenting for you. Subscribe. That's worth a subscribe. I mean, I'm the one mixing up the epoxy, going crazy with it. If you guys like it, now just follow along on this recipe. If not, you don't have to waste any material. Thanks, Mitch. Now I know I don't like that. Or, Mitch, you're the man, bro. I'm making this. That's what we try to do for you all here. I think that's it, dude. I think I'm gonna pour that out. All right, folks, I'm gonna remove what residual I have left here. And don't worry about any of that smears on this bottom. It's all gonna get covered up. So for any drips, I just kind of smear them around because we're about to pour all this opaque epoxy over here and all this disappears. But I don't like big polka dots, so just smear that around and it'll look good under there if any of it happens to show, which it won't. Look at that bucket. This is gonna be sweet. All right, here we go. So the hard part's done, and that hard part was simply tinting and mixing epoxy. That ain't hard at all. That was actually easy. Shoot some scores. Here we go. Grab your bucket that we just made, our exotic bucket, and we're gonna pour this out over the countertop. You can do this in any pattern you wish. You know, Mike likes to do big ring pours. You can go diagonally the same direction. You can pour and then come back over itself. You could pour a bunch of striated lines. It's dealer's choice. Pour it out in different methods. See what you like. I'm gonna kind of give this one a striated look, but rather than go side to side, I'm gonna do kind of an angled approach here. So I'm gonna pour it out and let's have some fun. Sweet. Now there is plenty of material for this to self-level and completely coat my board. I'm not gonna tilt it. I'm not gonna mess with it. I'm just gonna give it some time to self-level. Now that my epoxy is laid out on my board, I have well over an hour to work with this to get it to look the way I want. I could get out a heat gun, I could meld my lines together. I'm gonna bring my torch out and eliminate all the air I've incorporated into this epoxy while mixing. That's a simple process as well. But as I'm sitting here talking with you, I'm watching all these disappear as it self-levels. Come take a look, it's almost closed. That one's gone. It just does its thing. This thing looks really pretty. Okay, that's it. Maybe I just do one right over it, huh? What do you think?
Why not?
Why not? It'll be nice and light anyway, so here we go. And the final touch. Beautiful. That is pretty, very subtle and beautiful. Here we go. Let's eliminate the air we incorporated while working with this epoxy with a heat source. I'm using a propane torch. It's the most effective way, but you can also use a heat gun. We're gonna keep the torch head moving an inch or so from the surface and sweep the project, working left to right, right to left, whatever way you wanna go, but we're torching the whole surface. Okay, the air has been removed. It only took a couple torchings. Those bigger batches of epoxy, like you're gonna do when you're fixing your kitchen, are gonna stay more clear than those smaller batches. Those smaller batches suck in more air. You're gonna have to stick with this epoxy, torch it a couple more times, but it still removes all that air. This thing is ready to hang out. Whoop. We're gonna let this project cure for about 3 hours from now. I'm gonna come back, peel this tape. We'll let that epoxy flow on our edges. Project will be complete. I think this is gonna be my new coffee table. Guys, I'll be right back. I'll see ya in 3 hours. I'm gonna glove up. It's time to peel that tape, man. It's been about 3 hours since we mixed. I could probably wait a little bit longer to remove the tape dam. We're just gonna peel from the top and peel from the top down to help encourage that epoxy to start flowing over our edges. This project looks really good. Just take your time here. The most important part is to keep your arms out of the sticky tape. All right, once we get this tape peeled off, I'm gonna come back with my gloved fingers and help encourage this epoxy to start flowing. But you can see already here, it's starting to flow. So let me get rid of this and then I'll show you what we're gonna do to finish out these edges. Set that aside. Now come back to where we started, and with your gloved fingers, just make any areas wet. That breaks up the surface tension. Then the epoxy won't continue to go here, it'll coat the whole edge nice and uniform. And I'm just kind of getting that leading edge and pulling it down so I don't mess up any of those color effects that are starting to flow over my edges. If you do move a little bit side to side, it's not the end of the world, but yeah, you can move those colors side to side. But this epoxy will still continue to subtly self-level for about the next hour or so, depending on your room temperature. And then it's done self-leveling. At that point, we can come back and scrape the bottom with a paint stick, and then we'd have no drips to sand when we come back on our customer's house. But if I'm pouring this on site, if I'm pouring this in my shop, I'm gonna peel this tape, I'm gonna head home. Tomorrow, I'll flip it over with a 50 grit metal fiber sanding disc. Those drips are gone in probably 2.3 minutes of work. It's gone. So I wouldn't have to stick around and wait. If I'm on site, on the other hand, if I'm pouring this in my customer's home, I would definitely stick around another hour or so from now. Once I see my drips no longer dripping, the epoxy's gelled up by then, It's a good 4 to 5 hours after I've mixed the epoxy. I can scrape those drips, rub them flat, and they're not gonna come back. I will take it, guys. That brought me in a tropical happy mood. My wife is gonna love this color. And that's a pro tip, guys. I have a finished cool piece, but I also was able to test out my color scheme on a smaller project. I'm not in a customer's home. I'm not in my kitchen. That's a mega pro tip. Test out your color scheme, do a little sample piece, and you know you're gonna like it when you go to pour it in your kitchen. Guys, thanks for watching. I hope you learned some tips and tricks. I told you I'd be pouring a completed countertop right out of a bucket. This piece looks awesome. It's taking me to Florida or Hawaii or someplace tropical. I'm feeling much better. This project turned out very, very nice. I love the lacing that's going on over here. That little vein I did at the very end was a really nice touch. The exotic pour epoxy technique is perfect for first-time epoxy users. I haven't had an exotic pour fail yet. You guys can do this at home. Jump on over to our website to see all the products used in this video. Thanks for watching, everybody, from Stone Coat Countertops. Don't forget, you got this, and we'll see you on the next video.
Stone Coat Countertops, you got this.